Good afternoon, friends. David Wright here, and I am your host of the Disruptive Innovators, Champions of Digital Business podcast. And today I am lucky enough to be joined by Gaurav Banga. Gaurav, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Hey, thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of our listeners who may not be familiar with your body of work, can you tell everyone just a little bit about your current role?
Yeah, so I run a cybersecurity company called Balbix. I'm the founder and CEO. And Balbix uses AI to help organizations, the Fortune 500, the Fortune 1000, the global equivalent. We help them improve their cyber resilience and decrease their cyber risk using some of the capabilities of AI.
Yeah. Cyber risk is something. I have another buddy out of the Bay Area who has a cyber risk kind of assessment company. It's such a useful tool. So, especially now more than ever, I'll be interested in diving in deeper to that. So, again, it's a pleasure to have you on, Gaurav. Before anything, though, we always like to just start the episode with one piece of actionable advice you might look to leave the listeners with today.
Actionable advice around, I'll actually do better. I'll give you two things. One of them would be the business source. A lot of people come up to me and say, how do I start a company? And answer on the actionable advice piece of it is, well, you don't start a company, you try to solve a problem. And if the problem has certain properties, then you could put it down on the list of things that you might want to start a company for. And it's like the other way around. Your goal should not be to start a company. Your goal should be to find a problem that you want to start a company with that you want. And at least that has worked really well for me. But you have to be convinced that the problem is something that a lot of people care about. It's also a company that you can actually build, which means in most cases it's about monetization. And the second topic, actionable, is around cybersecurity. Would be that it's cybersecurity is now a data science problem. So if you are thinking about cybersecurity in whatever capacity, you should look at. Can you frame your cybersecurity problems, your issues? If you're thinking about a cybersecurity company, you have to frame whatever you're thinking about as a data problem or data science or an AI. And you have to figure out a way to bring specialized data science into, which is AI, into your solution. Otherwise, don't want to sort of give up.
Hey, you missed the boat. Couldn't agree more. And I would add for me, it's not only thinking you could solve the problem or do something better than someone else, but having the courage to fly over your skis and really do it. As a founder, there's inherent risk there. For me, there's like the fear of failure and then like developing that courage to push through that. And then a lot of those feelings dissipated for me over time, which was really cool too. But when you start out, it's crazy.
Yeah, David, I think you hit it right to the center of the issue, which is that business of entrepreneurship is not without fear. There is, and it's natural. Every one of us who's ever started a business has fear. And this is my fourth one. And lots of fear and lots of overcoming of fear. And also getting used to this one thing that in a single span of a couple of hours, you're going to feel extreme euphoria and the depth of despair and then back up to normal, all within a span of an hour or two. And it happens every single day until you get used to it. And then you say, nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. Truth is somewhere in the
Yep.
middle.
I love that. That's such a good way to think of things. For me, I have the same thing where, oh no, we owe $250,000. Oh, like this just happened. Just like you said, that wave. And what I've learned is that I can only control what I can control. So there's certain things that are out of my control, and to get upset about them is futile, right? It's like, how can I do the next right thing? And I do believe in fate to a certain extent, right? And that if I do the next right thing, things will work out how they're meant to, right? I digress. I'm interested, Gaurav, to hear about your story, how you started out, and how you got to be the serial entrepreneur you are today, as far back as you want to go.
Yeah, I could start go back to the beginning of at least my professional career. I have a PhD in computer science, which just basically means I know a lot about very little. That's my PhD topic. And the topic was the internet and the changes that need to happen in our systems, computer systems, operating systems, in particular, network stacks, protocols, in order to be ready for the internet and the scale that was happening at that time. That got me into, I worked a little bit on HTTP and operating system support, all that PhD topic. And then almost became a professor, but deferred my appointment to come out and teach Silicon Valley at the height of the boom. I took what I now admit was a 1 year sabbatical, although I didn't tell my future employer that. That's what I told the university that had made me an offer, which I had accepted. I said, I need a 1 year sabbatical. So I came over to Silicon Valley on that 1 year sabbatical. The objective was not necessarily to make money, but to learn. And I had really felt that I would be a professor for the next 30, 40 years. I would have no idea what I would be teaching my students or preparing my students for. And how can that be right? So let me at least go taste what I would be preparing them for. A NetApp and NetApp were getting the boom days. And I remember my parking lot becoming a data center overnight and having a problem to park and ultimately going home because I could not find a place to park. So those were the boom days, Ali. And ended up having a lot of fun. I wrote a lot of software, very proud to see very gratifying to see some of the things that NetApp ended up doing, saw that growth, the scale, made a lot of good sense. And then almost by accident, I discovered my first startup. And that was, I bought a smartphone. I just wanted to play with it. This was one of the early smartphones, found some deficiencies in it that were very personal in nature, started writing some software over the weekends, put it up on a website. And obviously, this has nothing to do with NetApp business, which is very important. And people started buying, and then people started buying more. And at some point of time, my income from that exceeded in a day, exceeded down to what I would make in a month. And it made no sense to not do the startup, if you will. Okay. Left my job after 5 years at NetApp and immersed myself into this piece of mobile software before most people even knew what a smartphone was. And I sold that company a few years later, and then to a public company, sold that company as well. And 9 months later, and then started my next gigs after that. So that was my first two gigs. And somewhere along the line, I had to decided just turnaround business was very interesting, and I was wrong. Ended up doing a turnaround of a public company, learned a lot in that process, and also figured out that the last thing I wanted to do was turn around. That was just not my thing. Starting some more of my thing. So 4 years was spending in learning a very important lesson of what I didn't really like to do. And then started my next company, which is in cybersecurity space, Formium. And then this is the last one after that, which is almost like a logical continuation of that, just expanding from the endpoint into data.
Very cool. What would you say was one of the most important things that you learned over the course of your journey, personally or professionally? And if you thought about life before learning it, after learning, we discussed some really good stuff at the beginning of the podcast, but anything else resonate as a really important lesson that you took away from your journey?
I wish I could one day, maybe I'll write down a blog with all the list of my learnings and relearning. So hundreds of learnings, if not more. I think I'll say two things to summarize all of this. One of them would be around this notion of, as a startup, you have to embrace this concept of velocity. Because if you think about a startup, you're competing with something. You're competing either with do nothing, or you're more likely you're competing with in an existing way of doing things. You're competing with whatever they're doing. It could be another product, another practice, and all that. And they're said by large companies in the B2B space. It's large companies. They're said by their customer base. And we have more of everything. We have more people, more money, more land, more reach, more distribution. The only thing you really have as an entrepreneur is speed, or more correctly, velocity, which is speed and direction. So one of the things I've learned is that stay a slave to velocity. And I literally mean that. Enslave yourself, be inspired by it, run like this. Your cape is on fire. You're Superman and your cape is on fire, and you could just run faster than the fire. And that's the way you will go move faster than the world. While the world is sleeping, you're changing the world. So that was one thing I learned. And then the second thing I learned is all about the people, right? It's your company will be successful beyond a certain point, and the point comes really early, is based on the people you hang out with. And just goes all the way down to not just everybody says you must have the right colleagues around you, and that is 100% true. Don't get me wrong that. But it also extends to the investors that you pick, issue customers that you take, the customers that you don't take on until much later, and the team members that you have around you, your colleagues, right? If there is a determinant of success other than velocity, at least I've learned it to people around you. And then on the technical end, like I said, there are thousands and thousands, or at least a few thousand percent of learners that start with this. And there are lots of books that people have written about them, and I would probably read going over the same idea.
Yeah, no, but it's always great to hear from someone's experience firsthand. And I couldn't agree more. What about a time that you had either a project fail or something hit the wall or a personal hardship, but ultimately you took away something profound from the experience? Is there a time that sticks out in your mind that's akin to that?
Oh, yeah. COVID was very tough for us in this particular company, and we hit the wall, and literally our business kind of was reliant on people actually going into physical data centers and setting things up, and that stuff just disappeared during COVID. Right? There was a little of investment that was still happening in the physical space, but we were not considered important enough to make the cut. Right? And what that meant was that our business had to change almost overnight. And like you said, right, you pointed this thing out, which is really wise. Don't worry about things that you can do nothing about. So we figured that this whole COVID business, we would not be able to do anything about. And it was going to take its own sweet time. The federal government, just the vaccine development, and it's going to be maybe 2 to 3 years before the world will return to normal. And we did not have the cash to survive those 2 to 3 years. So we need to pick it right away into a software mostly model. And it's something that did not require any setup data centers and things like that. And so we took literally had to do a layoff to cut costs and retune the company so that we work backwards from where we thought we wanted to be at the end of COVID. I think we guessed right when COVID would end from our business system. And then we're fortunate in that. And then we work backwards and set our cash on the ledge, set up our milestones, went through 3 or 4 ideas and nailed down exactly what we need to do. So one of my mentors tells me moments of crisis are definitely challenging. But if you have a little bit of luck, they can also turn into moments of opportunity. And the entire business we have today in my company is completely based on the decisions that we took in those fateful 2 or 3 days around April of 2020.
Yeah. No, and I couldn't agree with that more. I think some of my most profound moments of growth, both personally and professionally, came out of COVID and out of other points in my development of my businesses. But no, I appreciate you sharing that, Gaurav. So I want to pivot to talk a little bit more about Balbix. Before we do, I always like to ask just favorite book or blog that you've been reading recently or all time, your choice.
Let's go with all time. There's this whole idea around AI. It seems like a new topic to a lot of people, and it is. Don't get me. There's a there has been a huge advancement in AI over the last 36 months, if you will, right? And it came at the end of evolutionary growth for the last decade or so. But my point is not about AI. My point is really about most of us don't really spend a lot of time thinking about how we think, how human intelligence is all about. And one of the topics that I was very fortunate to get interested in was about human intelligence. One of my friends had introduced me to the topic. He gave me a book to read. I put it away. I didn't read it. I actually read the first two chapters of it and then said, yeah, whatever. I read it when I have some time, when I'm starting the next company, I'll read it before that. And that's exactly what I did. And so when I was thinking about Balbix and the problem, I went and reread that book and then read lots of books around brain science and how the brain works, some which were too complicated for me. So I just, whatever, irrelevant. And some which were very profound. And that provided a set of guardrails and not maybe guardrails or direction, if you will, for how to use AI in cybersecurity. And that is, so the two books that I'd like to mention, one of them is On Intelligence with Jeff Hawkins. That was one of the most important books I read. It was early days. And then there is Udia Pearl has a book on correlation and causality. And that's the second book that I would highly recommend. And they have nothing to do with cybersecurity. They have nothing to do with AI, but they provide a very useful framework on how to think about AI as we go. And we are living in the world of AI. And you would choose not to like it, but it's happening. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's exciting that you guys at Balbix are incorporating that into everything you do. Talk to me a little bit about your vision for Balbix, maybe some of the key initiatives you guys are working on. I'm just excited to share that with our listeners.
Yeah. AI is very simple. Right? AI extends one more time what we can do as human beings. That's the way I think about it. Right? And as human beings, we've always been with problems that we can do, so we can solve with our own hands and feet and mind. And then we figure out a way to get to the next level. And those things are called tools, right? And it's 100 years ago, somebody speculated that people would be walking around talking on these little things that they hold to their head or with their headphones that they wear, and they talk with somebody else on the other side of the world. Which said, these guys are witch doctors. I don't know what they're talking about. Right? They burn them at the stake or something like that, right? But they would not be very kind to you if you were saying those kind of things. And it would be but that's the world we live in right now. And the smartphone, the internet, all of these are tools that we bring to increase the capability of what our hands and what our minds can do. AI is just another one of those, the latest and greatest, and perhaps the most powerful yet. And the most profound thing about AI is that for the first time, I think we are able to talk to computers just like we talk to other colleagues. Make all the human communication or being able to communicate is very fundamental us as a species, to our success as a species. Because it's not the only thing, but we also know that we're only scratching the surface. 75-80% of all communication is nonverbal. But we definitely live in the age of communication, at least for the last 150,000 years as human beings. And now we enter this new age where we can also communicate without tools in the same way that we communicate with human beings. And that was at this huge amount of productivity improvements and hopefully gains around what our quality of life is going to be. Like I imagine that we should all agree that we want a robot that can load and unload the dishwasher. No, and around that, hopefully nobody likes to do that kind of stuff, really. And that is feasible now. And if not in the next 2 years, but definitely in the next 5 to 7 years, right? 5 years. That's it. A robot that can literally be your butler, as you will, right? And so can And that can open up a whole bunch of things that time and things for you that you don't have today. So similarly in cybersecurity, if you look at the cybersecurity problem, it's a computational problem. There's a bunch of math that we are all capable of doing. We don't like to do that over. Who likes to do 1,000 matrix? If you look at matrix multiplication, who enjoys multiplying 1,000 by 1,000 matrix 24/7? Nobody. And it's not, I don't know, just boring stuff. And AI is pretty good at it. The other problem that we have in cybersecurity is we don't have enough people. And the reason why we don't have enough people is because there's a certain amount of specialization that you need, certain amount of data that you need. And there's people often don't want to do that repetitive job. So if we change the game, if you want to change the game, let's use AI for competition and then let's get a virtual assistant to help us with all the things that we don't want to do. That's what Balbix is all about. And that's what the promise of AI in cybersecurity is.
Super cool. What about, have you seen any challenges in either getting the word out there, or you guys clearly made it out of COVID, a time of where at the onset you didn't even have enough money to do that. And so you did all these creative things to come out on the other side. And now, are there any challenges that you face today that hinder you guys from growing, or are you guys on your horse?
We are on a horse, but the trail definitely is not simple, right? And all the things that you are. A lot of people understand the promise of AI and they're waiting to see the delivery happen. And the delivery, the execution, it really comes down to the work that my engineering team, my product management, and my customer success team do every day. By no means is anybody's AI perfect. It's like a little kid, right? And the little kid to become a teenager or an adult AI, another level needs to go in. You have to teach the kid, you have to train the kid, you have to take the kid to college, school, soccer games, all of that, right? And that's happening right now. And it has to happen very quickly. The next year, and you've already seen an enormous improvement in how useful AI can be in the last 24 months. And the next 24 months, we're going to be crazy. And we at Balbix have to execute through all of that. So that's one challenge. And I think the other challenge really comes down to is all the people who don't believe in AI would think that they can live in a world where 80% of the people are doing AI, or 50% of the people, or 30% of the people are doing AI, and the others, they can just avoid doing AI. And they don't understand AI. They are afraid of it, whatever reason it is, right? And this is no different than what happened with the internet and the smartphone. They were early adopters of smartphones and the internet, and then there were the people who adopted right after that, and there were the people who adopted late. So we have the same challenge, right? Which is that we're going to be early adopters of AI, and we're going to have to help evangelize to the next wave of adopters. We're going to be many more, and we have to follow through with our tactics and strategy on how to do that, make that happen.
Yeah. When you mentioned all that, I was thinking about the Y2K people who were like, what's going to happen? It's not so dissimilar to some of the dissenters surrounding AI, but I agree wholeheartedly, both for our organization and just, I was using AI earlier today just to, I created like a mock Gantt chart, like things that would have taken me, like something I did earlier today would have taken me probably 25 minutes, or my admin 25 minutes. I did it in 5 seconds, like with a prompt. Um, Things like that are just fantastic. And the use cases are, there's just so many for our customers in a clinical setting with the hospitals and health systems that we serve. There's going to be a shortage of doctors and nurses. There already is, but there's going to continue to be a shortage of doctors and nurses as the years go by in the United States. I don't know if people realize how dire it really is, but kids often don't want to be doctors anymore, especially general practitioners, because between the debt that you accumulate, what you get paid, and like the hours and what you're required to do, it's a lot, right? So I get it. But anyway, I digress. Point is, we're going to need to do more with less. The doctors, how can I enable the doctor to have that human experience with the patient? part of that is removing any administrative burden that I can. And AI is a perfect solve for that using ambient listening and things of that nature. I'm incredibly hopeful. And to your point, it's so much further along than it was 2, 4, 6 years ago. And it's still in its infancy, or maybe it's in its toddlerhood, like you mentioned, but with a little more. Yeah. So that's exciting.
A powerful tablet though who can save you 20 minutes this morning.
I wish my toddler was that efficient. No, I'm just kidding. I love her very much. He's kicking me last night in my sleep, but it's all good. So we have a few last questions, Gaurav. One would be, we talked about the future with AI, but maybe let's hone in on the cybersecurity or IT industry. Where do you see the cybersecurity and or IT industry going in the future, and or what do you think will be some of the biggest changes as time passes?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if you look at cybersecurity and you want to look at it in perspective, you have to say, first off, it's a 150,000-year-old problem, at least. Right? It's an extension of the security problem, which we always had. Right? And what is the security problem? The security problem is the problem of war and crime. The cybersecurity is, as framed in the problem, how important is it? It is very simple. It's war and crime have come online. That's what it is. Right now, how sophisticated is it? It has already a lot big data problem. It's a non-human scale problem. The number of different ways in which bad things can happen from a cybersecurity perspective, the number of different permutations and combinations by which bad guys can come in, the so-called attack surface, is massive. Just trying to review your attack surface, right? If you were to do it by hand, it would take, for let's say a typical Fortune 500, it would take 200 human beings, 20 lifetimes to make one pass over the attack surface. So imagine hearing your checklist of, hey, what are the bad things that could happen? 200 human beings, 20 lifetimes, it did one pass. And I did need to be doing pass at least 6 to 10 times a day, if not more. Maybe at least once a day. It takes you 20 lifetime, 200 humans. So it can be done. So right now we are in this wave where a lot of companies, their investment thinking is about how to automate all this. And if you automate all this, you can make a daily pass and make daily recommendations. And then instead of acting on those recommendations in hundreds of days, can I shrink that down to 3 days, 4 days, 5 days? And that's happening one, right? And there are 25% of the companies in the world that are doing this, and 75% are not. So the message to the 75% who are not is, guys, get on it. Come on, it's just now we are looking into the world of AI, which is coming up. It started coming, the world of deep fakes, the way in which you don't even have 4 days to deal with new risk, new element of your attack surface. You have maybe 4 seconds or 4 minutes, right? And so that way, the way we envision the world of AI fighting AI, right? The bad guys AI, the attackers AI, the adversaries AI, fighting your AI. And the that kind of most of the time it won't nothing happens. But there's constantly you need a force shield right around you. And sometimes because they have the force shield, they won't even bother. Then go after the people who have the force shield. And that's the way we are going to move into. Some of my colleagues would argue that we're already in that world. And I would say, okay, maybe you're seeing something that I'm not seeing, or it's not happening at scale yet. But I think this year is probably than last year when it's not happening at scale. So most of my early adopter, or I would not call it even early, industry leading customers, they're already moving to that world. They're preparing for that and they're doing it right because they know it's going to happen. And if you bring, if you bring the wrong tool to a knife fight or a gunfight, you know what happens? You leave.
Yeah, no, I love that analogy. Made me think of Terminator or something like that. But yeah, it's so true. I love that you talked about the attack service.
I don't think Terminator, think Star Wars, think Star Wars. The end of the world, Star Wars, like a new beginning, a new hope. Think about that, right? Just imagine all the nice weapons they had and the nice force field, the safe fields, and that's what yeah, it's just cool. Like this little cool light was that people had.
Yeah, the force. I love it. Gaurav, this has been awesome. I learned a lot. I think everybody will really enjoy this. The last question I would just have for you is, and I like to ask all my guests this, if you could go back 5, 10, 15 years in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
Listening or
That's a good one. Active listening has been,
that was an acquired taste for me. As a technical
yeah,
guy, I didn't really realize how important listening was. I thought reading was the thing. You read more. Sure, read more is very important, but what you read out of it is secondhand information most of the time. And it is, you get first-hand information. So that was being an acquired taste for me over the years. I wish I had acquired it 10 years before I did, right? And no regrets. I mean, everybody has to deal with the card with them. But one thing I would do, not just read more, observe more and listen more.
love it. Gaurav, it was an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Hey, thank you. This has been a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you all next week.